up, you guys? This is Rob from Guy Plays, and today on the Daily Grind, we are finally jumping into the discussion portion of Focus 2.0. And trust me, there is a lot to talk about, from operator movement to some animations that I'm kind of worried about, to what happens between the second dream and the war within, as well as some things that I really want you guys to pay attention to when it comes to the different, I guess we're gonna call them houses of Focus. But before we go ahead and jump into that, I did want to give you a little bit of an update on Rebecca's Twitter. She did note that the daily focus cap will most likely be increased from 100,000 to 250,000 per day, and the conversion orbs will no longer give us 6 times multiplier when it comes to focus farming, but it'll actually give us 8 times. So this is definitely something that I'm very, very excited about. As you guys know, I've kind of been on this trip of like hoarding up as much focus as possible. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to recap that kind of goes along with this, and why I'm a little bit on like a, oh my god, I need to get all of my focus shit together trip, is mainly because of the fact that we did find out that all of the focus that is going to be respect to us will be put back into their respective trees. So it's not just going to be in this big giant pool for us to go and play around with in any tree that we want. Whatever we've earned in each tree is going to be what we will have in each tree at the end of it. Does that make any sense to you guys? Like, all the things we spent in each tree will be refunded in each tree. It's not going to be like this big pool. So a part of me is like looking at Vazarin and I'm like, oh my god, I'm almost done with Vazarin, but really how many points am I going to have to get into it in order to get all of the operator passives that I really want? Because you know what? I would love for my operator to become this warrior. And one of the big tips that I'm going to give you guys straight out of the gate is, if you're concerned about your operator's health, Vazarin is definitely a focus school that you're going to want to look into, because of the fact that Vazarin is going to give a boost to your operator health. You might also want to look into Unairu, because that's going to give some defensive measures as well, or in my head it's going to give defensive measures. Actually, if we look here, the Unairu residuals do give an increase of armor for Warframes and operators, so that'll be nice. That'll definitely be nice if we're talking about operator survivability. So since we're here and we're discussing the focus trees and the operator survivability, one of the things that I was kind of concerned about, and I was actually looking in the forums, but I think a lot of people are panicking too much straight out of the gate. A lot of them are like, well, operators move so slowly right now, oh my god, it's gonna be the worst. And a part of me is like, alright, that's great. Right now, they move very, very slowly. But what happens to our operators after they become Tenno warriors? I don't think that we've taken that into account. I'm crossing my fingers that after we become Tenno warriors, we'll be able to parkour and move a lot like our Warframes do. I mean, we already have, we already have the skeletons ready to go. Like, I'm sure that they could find a way to code that in and give us the abilities to do bullet jumps and all of that kind of stuff too, in addition to like our invisibility, our void modes, and our void dashes and all of that. So I'm definitely crossing my fingers for there to be an improvement in the operator movement system, because even though, I don't like feeding into this whole like, oh, I'm so negative, everything is the worst, it would be a bit of a pain to navigate around in the operator's current movement system if you're trying to dodge like Eidolon AoEs and all of that. So it would be nice to have the operators have some improvements to their movement system. Now, another thing that I also wanted to point out, and this kind of ties into the whole second dream thing, but we'll chat about that in a second, is one of the things that I'm a little bit worried about is the animation from phasing, from going from Warframe into operator. Now, I do a lot of Kuva farming. I absolutely love Kuva farming. However, there are some times that I do feel a little bit turned around, and I do feel like the animation for that isn't as fluid as it could be. Now, I do hold out a little bit of hope for it because of the fact that they have done some great like transition work when it comes from Hydroid into his puddle. Right? You guys knew how much I praised that. I was like, oh my god, you can like jump in and jump out. It's just so much more fluid than it was before. Haha, fluid, Hydro joke. Regardless, I've been hanging out with Mogamu too much. I'm sorry. But basically, you know what? I'm kind of crossing my fingers for that kind of fluidity when it comes to jumping in and jumping out of the Warframes themselves, because that is definitely something that you guys have seen it on stream before, where I've literally just been like, I popped out of my Warframe and I'm like, oh wait, where am I? That's definitely a feeling that I've had, so I'm kind of crossing my fingers that that's something that we're going to see improved upon when it comes to I would just like to have that improved upon in general. I was gonna say in warrior mode, but legitimately, like, just in general, so that it wouldn't be so disorienting when you did pop out of your Warframe. I mean, I still feel like in our current system, as long as the operator warriors are improved on a little bit more, I think that, you know, it's something that we could deal with. But, you know, quality of life, if you really want us to love all of the operator stuff that they're doing, that's definitely something that I would like to see upgraded. However, this does bring me to a question. So this is like more of a lore question, and I don't really know exactly where this is going to end up landing. But, so, after this, like, oh, this is spoilers. I think that everybody's fine with spoilers. This is a focus video. You guys are good. But, after the second dream, when we choose our focus school, all we really have is, like, focus beam, right? That's all we're really doing. So, we get into our operators, we have the thing where we pop out and we just, you know, zoom around with the beam. We didn't have access to, like, the dashes, the void mode, the void blast, and the void laser. We didn't have access to any of that. So part of me is like, what's going to happen to the players who have completed the second dream but not begun the war within? So are they going to have access to these focus schools as well? Or is it just, are they just going to have a laser and that's it? Like, exactly what's going to happen between that transition? Because legitimately, you don't learn Void Blast or Void Mode or Void Dash. You don't learn any of that until the War Within. So does that mean they're going to be locked out of certain aspects of focus until they're able to complete the War Within? Or will the tree change completely? Or will it just change when we become Operator Warriors? That's something that I'm super curious about, because I genuinely have no clue what's going to happen between that gap. And of course, DE, I'm sure, has planned for it in some way, shape, or form. They haven't just created this whole new system and just left a massive gap between the two. Have they? I'm trusting you, DE, to not mess that part up, because I'm very curious. I'm going to have to ask some people who haven't necessarily completed the War Within. So, one of the other things that I found to be very interesting from all of this, so, you know, we're talking about the different trees, one of the remarks that was left on the, I guess you would say the four-page thing where they had all of the focus stuff and all of the residuals listed out, this kind of like got to me, and I'm like, ooh, I need to start grinding out Matter-Eye ASAP. But they had stated that one can only truly complete the focus trees by exploring all of the 5-10-0 ways. So I think what they were saying here, and I want to just like triple check, is that they were basically saying that it sounded like we would only have access to certain things once we've unlocked all of the 5 focus trees. And I don't know if it's going to be unlock all of the 5 focus trees as in every single focus tree, or maybe, you know, maybe they're just saying that, you know, you can't be a whole warrior without unlocking all 5 of them. So it leaves me a little concerned, because I'm like, okay, what do you mean we can only complete a focus tree by exploring all of the 5-10-0 ways? Like, you mean I can't finish Neramon without having explored Zeneric, Vazarin, Matter-Eye, and Unairu? Like, I have to like I have to have at least done something with those other ones to complete Neramon? I don't know. I'm kind of concerned about that. I don't know what that means. But maybe it's kind of like top tier echelon kind of stuff. You know, once you're done with each tree, something big unlocks for all of them. I don't know. But that is one of the things that caught my eye that I didn't see initially. Regardless, I figured we would go ahead and start chatting about each one of the trees. Now, Neramon's residuals actually seem pretty good and seem to be pretty stable with all of the other, with what it's kind of been so far, which is more affinity on melee kills. That's something that Neramon's had before, and 50% more damage to melee. Now, previously, I believe it was more along the lines of crit chance, and that synergized better with Shadow Step, but clearly Shadow Step is going away. Those residuals actually seem pretty good. Those are pretty solid, but there seems to be a lot of focus on melee, which is interesting because the Zeneric residuals are, of course, the radial energy pickup on effect, which I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, alright? I'm not 100% sure, but it does sound much like how Arcane Energize works. Radial energy pickup on effect, so that means the rest of your team is going to get that radial energy as well. And I'm wondering, I'm not crossing my fingers, but I'm wondering, well, I am crossing my fingers now. I am wondering if Zeneric's residuals are going to be as strong as Arcane Energize, or if it's going to be kind of just maybe like a watered down version of it. We'll see, maybe a bootleg Arcane Energize. And then channeling efficiency on melee. Now, this is one of the things that I thought was really, really interesting because we don't really see too many weapons with channeling boosts to them. So far in the game, we've only seen one melee weapon that has additional channeling damage on it, and I believe that is the Synoid Heliocore? I believe it's a Synoid Heliocore. It's one of those hammers. It's one of the damn Cephalon weapons. And so that was really interesting. So I'm almost curious to see if the Ostron weapons, the Zars, or the Zaws, have a channeling efficiency as a potential thing to buff. Because that would be really, really interesting if DE... Because the thing is, let's be real. Melee weapons so far, we've stretched them wide. Like, literally, they're like a gaping anus. They have taken so much in there. There's, you know, there's things that allow you to get more status based on your melee multiplier, more crit based on your melee multiplier, extensions of the combo multiplier, and then there's a lot of different things that have been kind of like pushed in there. and sorry, I saw where that comment was going, but legitimately, there's a lot of things that are going on. One of the things that they haven't explored when it came to melee is really focusing on channeling. And there's, to me, in my head, a lot of people have played around with channeling builds before, and they, like, stand champion builds, so, like, all high heavens. I, myself, am like, maybe there's, like, 3 frames that you could really run channeling builds on and do it well. But who knows, cross your fingers, maybe they'll be able to do something with Zeneric, who will have the bonus channeling efficiency on melee, and maybe we'll see some sort of like surge in, weapons with channeling in them, so you never know. Like, a lot of people are kind of quick to judge on this, and they're like, oh, it's gonna be terrible, it's gonna be really, really bad, but legitimately, we don't know what the future holds for melee weapons, especially because we're gonna have this whole melee crafting system. And that's also kind of the same way that I felt about people prejudging operator movement. We don't know, like, listen, this is an operator kind of rework almost, like a focus rework. We don't know if the operator's gonna have like a better movement system. So let's just, you know, hold our judging until it's actually released, because some people are just too quick to jump on it. The Unairu residuals are really, really interesting. It reflects damage back to attackers and increases the armor for Warframes and operators. Now, as compared to kind of like Naramon and Zeneric, this actually feels a little bit more in line of what a residual would be like, you know what I mean? Because of the fact that we do have some Warframes. There's some Warframes for me that are just like teetering on that edge of like, you're almost a tank. You're almost a tank, Harry. And that is exactly kind of like what I'm hoping that Unairu will give enough of an increase for their Warframes, you know, enough of an armor increase for the Warframes to really kind of push them over that edge and turn them into more tanky beasts. And the great thing is that it's not just a passive for Warframes, but it's also a passive for operators, so that kind of carries over as well. The next one up is the Matarai residuals, which have increased physical damage and increased elemental damage. This one got me thinking, alright? One of the big things that I loved, well, okay, one of the things that I wanted to get Matarai for was the fact that you can individually increase the slash damage, impact damage, and puncture damage, right? So let's say for certain weapons that are just pure elemental types but are really, really heavy into their status, I was like, well, what would happen if we could just increase their physical stats? Because for those of you guys who don't know, the physical damage that is added from the Matarai tree currently is additive. It's not multiplicative. So what happens is, you know, even if you don't have any slashing damage on a weapon, so it's a pure elemental weapon, because of the fact that it's additive, you can actually add in a percentage of slashing damage to that weapon. So that's kind of cool. That's definitely something that I wanted to explore Matarai for, but now it seems that the two residuals are just increased physical damage and increased elemental damage. So we might not have that option to kind of like tweak our elementals that way. I mean, we might be able to put IPS on if this is still additive, but we won't be able to selectively put in slashing for, you know, the unique status effects that they have. But in addition to that, we do get the increased elemental damage as a passive, which is not something that we saw before. And this might actually be really, really good I'm actually kind of excited about the increased elemental damage. I want to see exactly how it all plays out, because as you know, the great thing about the elemental damage is if they merge, you know, if they make little elemental babies and do combinations, you could potentially be boosting up something that enemies have a 75% weakness to. So I'm like, this could be kind of juicy, especially for Warframes that can strip armor and all of that kind of stuff. And as we know that there are definitely lots of team comps, and there are definitely lots of Warframes with the ability to strip down armor, or, you know, maybe you just have weapons that can either bypass armor or kind of strip down armor themselves. So I'm excited to see how it goes. What I really want to see are numerical values to see exactly how much they boost. And lastly are the Vazarin residuals, which are basically the same as the other ones. So if you liked Vazarin before, you'll like Vazarin again with the increased affinity radius and the instant revives. But the one thing that I have to point out with Vazarin, and this is going to be something that I'm going to highly suggest to you guys, is y'all might want to pick up Vazarin. If you're not all up in Vazarin already, you might want to get up in that zone, because legitimately Vazarin, the higher trees that they have in there, I guess the passive trees that are going to be cross tree things, as we saw on the prime time, would actually boost up operator health by 125% per rank. So if we're just sticking, and here's the thing, if I don't know what their plans are, if operators, when they become operator warriors, will get a boost to their health or something, I'm not sure. But if we're talking about it right now, a 125% boost to the operator's health could be pretty gosh darn massive. And I would definitely be excited to see that, because it would increase survivability, and Vazarin also has the health regeneration for your operators, so that'll definitely be nice, especially because you can almost like Hydroid pool it, you know what I mean? Because you can get Void Mode, and you can kind of dip into Void Mode, give yourself a little bit of health regeneration, which will definitely be nice. So I'm really going to stress to you guys that Vazarin might be something that you might want to check out when it comes to kind of like operator combat. If you're really excited about the operator combat and you haven't touched Vazarin already, I definitely want you guys to jump into that and start putting some points in there, because it seems to be the one that's going to have kind of, you know, it's going to be like the vitality of your operator build, I guess you would say. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how like the rest of the gear functions as well, because they did say that, you know, they're gonna be operator specific augments, and who knows, some of those augments could just be like, oh, get a shit ton more health, oh, get some shields, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things that I found interesting too. None of this provided the operators with shields whatsoever, so I'm wondering if that's maybe built in to some of Quill's augments or weaponry or something. Maybe the weaponry has some built-in shielding for your operator. We'll just have to see how all of that goes. Now, when it comes to like my opinions on this, I'm actually very, very excited, because, and this is what I heard a lot of people saying, and I kind of wanted to roll my eyes at it. Well, my Warframe can do it better. Oh, well, if my Warframe can do it better, then why would I do it? Well, we're not always going to be running around with a radial disarm Loki. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, I have a Loki build that is specifically made for stealth. I specialize in stealth on one of my builds. Let's say I need to disarm something that's really, really pissing me off, pop out into my operator and go ahead and disarm them. Or, you know what, maybe I'm not even running Loki whatsoever. Maybe I'm running Ash, or maybe I'm running Trinity or something, and I really wanted to like nullify some enemies and make it so that they couldn't attack me. I could just pop out of my operator and disarm them. And I know that makes it sound very like simple and easy, but, you know, as I was stressing earlier, I'm crossing my fingers that the popping out of an operator animation is better. I'm hoping that the operators do get a little bit more movement. So, you know, I'm not just saying like, oh, it's going to be amazing. There are some caveats to that. You know, it might be difficult to get to an enemy. But here's the one thing that we also want to point out, is that in the Vazarin tree, no, in the Zeneric tree, sorry, I always get those two confused, there is operator power pool upgrades. So that's kind of one of the things that I want to point out with too. A lot of people are basing their judgments on this operator system, on Focus 2.0, on our current operator system. We don't know how big the changes are going to be to that, and I definitely think that this is something that they had to play around with a little bit, especially when fighting Eidolon. So that's kind of like, that's my main point right there, is you're going to have to fight Eidolon with this operator in some way, shape, or form. So for them to maybe, you know, for them to not have touched up their movement skills at all is, I don't know, I find it kind of like, I'm kind of a bit incredulous to the fact that they wouldn't have touched that. Because, of course, they're going to have to fight Eidolons. They're going to have to test out the fact that you need to be able to kill an Eidolon with an operator. And if an Eidolon is stringing a tree at your ass, you need to be able to move. So either you're going to have enough of a power pool to use your dashes and your invisibilities to kind of get you around the place safely, or they're going to give you a better movement system so that you can jump and dodge out of those things yourself. But one of the things that I think people forget when it comes to this operator stuff is the way that it'll synergize with certain frames. So if you think about it, maybe you're playing a Vauban and you need to go ahead and, let's say you're playing a Vauban and all of these goddamn enemies are hiding behind cover and you're like, I really just want to vortex your ass though. So you can jump out, disarm a bunch of enemies with your operator, then boom, toss down a vortex and just make quick work of them that way. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the optimal way to play, but the best Warframe players are not sitting there dismissing operator combat. What they are is they're thinking of ways that they can synergize certain operator houses with schools. I need to stop thinking about them like they're Harry Potter. But yeah, how certain operator schools are going to be combined with certain Warframes. Because here's the thing, everybody who knows about mechanics is going to be playing around with these things, and I don't want to say this too loud, because sometimes I think like DE might be listening, but we're going to find ways to like just a little bit exploit this. You know, if there's a way that we can kind of just play around with just the mechanics just a little bit, if there's a way that we can cheese the game just a little bit with the new operator mechanics, you definitely know that all of you mechanically intelligent people are gonna be sitting there looking at all of these things to kind of like, all right, what can I combine with operator, you know, operator tree 1, and what can I combine with like Equinox, or what can I combine with this, that, or the other. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see all of those things come into play, because legitimately, Focus 2.0 is gonna bring us a bunch of new mechanics that we could just exploit. Regardless, I want to know how you guys feel. Are you, oh, you know what we should do? We should do like the whole baseline thing, like we've kind of done in previous videos. What I want you guys to do is to leave me in the comments below, what is the baseline that they need to do in order to make operators, to make Focus 2.0 successful? Because you guys have already seen what the residuals are going to do. You've already kind of seen what the passives are going to do. You know that, all of the upgrades in the focus trees are going to be based around each of the schools' like themes. You know, you're going to have a dash, but you're going to have a dash for Vazir and a dash for Naramon, a dash from Matarai, so on and so forth. And I'm really excited because fucking Naramon's dash is called Executing Dash. Executing Dash? What do you mean by Executing Dash? Will that open enemies up to melee finishers? Oh my god. You dash through your enemies, they're all opened up to melee finishers, you pop back into your Warframe, and then you go in for like a finishing strike. See, this is the thing that I'm excited about. That I think is super ridiculously cool, because if you think about it, you can synergize that with a Warframe that's using arcane trickery, and you might be able to get some like stealth in your Warframe from it, something that you wouldn't be able to do before. I don't know. That's just potential. Okay, I'm just going off of a name here, but as you can see, I am hyped to explore new mechanics. Let me know how you guys feel about exploring those new mechanics, as well as, you know, the baseline of what DE can do to make Focus 2.0 exciting and really, really cool for you guys. But that about does it for me. Leave your feelings in the comments below, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch, oh, I did a double touch, touch your body twice. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.